everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First off, I want to thank all the citizens for coming out today for our January the 25th, 2020 meeting. We're going to go over a little brief format to try to keep this thing going in order and make sure everyone gets a fair chance to speak. First off, I would just like for everybody to be courteous of the other people, regardless of whatever comes up. We all have different opinions, but the whole thing we want to stress is if we work together, we can make it good for our community. We're going to look at 3 minutes on each topic. May give or take just a second, but we're going to try to keep this order because I want everybody to be able to speak. We'll do one topic at a time. We will start off with the environmental issues. That'll be the first topic up. Anyone that has anything on that will be asked to speak in that segment. Then we'll go to budget and finance. If anyone has any questions there, we would like for you to come forward then. Then we will have the open forum where it's any questions. And if it gets to the open forum where we get on one subject, at the end when that person starts, I will ask if anyone else has anything in it so we can sort of keep things grouped together for the best where everybody will be knowledgeable. At the very end, the questions that were sent in online, I will be reading those out for you. Citizens can come back and ask different questions on different subjects, but all I ask is if you spoke, please wait to the end and let the other people speak, and then you come back if you have it on different subjects. When you're listening to people speak, if you hear the questions that you're going to ask, if you can sort of not get into the same question every single time, we want to be able to soak in all your suggestions, your questions, and try to get the appropriate answers for you as soon as we can. We want, accountability is what we're trying to say here. But just want to thank all y'all for coming out, and we'll start it up now. The first issue will be environmental issue discussions. Do I have anyone that would like to start it off? Yes, sir. When you come to the mic, please state your name and your address, please, sir.
My name is Mark Solisker. Our property address here is 904 East Main Street. My question is, could you all give us an update on the dredging spoils placement discussions for the beach compatible sand? And my concern is dumping the spoils on the beachfront was a big concern of mine. So just an update on that.
Yes, sir. Administrator Howell, do you have any updates on that particular item?
At this time, we don't have any updates. We're still looking for other sites and discussing with other communities what we can do, plus with the state trying to figure out what we can do, because we have to keep it in the system somewhere, and that beach compatibility sand for our system is between us and Ocean Isle Beach. So if we can't work something out with Ocean Isle Beach, then we're going to have to petition the state to let us deposit somewhere else who is willing to take that sand. And for clarity's sake, I know people keep using the word spoils. It's not spoils. Spoils is the stuff we don't want. This is purely beach compatible sand that we are trying to find a place to put somewhere. We don't have a storage facility for it. The state doesn't have a storage facility for it. The state laws do, like I said, do make us keep it in the system. So we're trying to find some place in the system that we can use that sand for. Our consultant is working on it, but there's been no status update on that at this time, unfortunately. When we do get something, we post that stuff on our website consistently. So just keep an eye on our website in the dredging section. We'll be posting updates as we get them.
Have you all abandoned the possibility of a place to get on the beach?
That's a council, I believe that's what we all decided. That's why we're looking for other routes.
Yeah, we pretty much discussed that in the meeting, that it wouldn't go on our beach here, especially in the area where it's talking. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. All right, next. Yes, ma'am.
Carol Santavica, Forest Drive. I don't know if this is environmental or not, but it regards recycling. I'm starting to get the feeling again that I'm paying a recycling fee to feel good. Because even at one of these most recent meetings over the last couple of months, one of the councilmen said something about if one thing goes in that trash barrel that isn't supposed to be there, then the whole truck is contaminated and cannot be recycled. I would like some clarification on that, especially since all the rules seem to have changed with the new company.
Anyone, any of the councilmen have any comments to that?
I do not. I don't have any answers.
I don't think we have the answers yet. You are correct, it seems like we're doing it to feel good. We got a new company, we don't know quite all what they're gonna do yet. If you saw the last meeting, our finance director, Tara Drop, talked about the different numbers, and we just don't know.
You got any more clarity on that?
But it is something
Administrator?
we can ask GFL. To
If we
get,
cannot find out, why are we expending this money?
like I said, it's something we can ask GFL, that we don't have any control over the recycle operations. What we do is we just administer the program to keep the costs down for our citizens. Everything else is handled by that company, how they do their business. But like I said, we can ask them if, there is one contaminant, does the whole truckload go out or not? That has traditionally been the past with the collector dumpsters of that kind of thing.
Why don't you ask them to come to one of our meetings and explain it to us?
I can do that. I can't guarantee they will, but I can do that.
Understood.
Would anybody else have an environmental issue? All right, we'll move on to the next subject then. This will be our budget and finance issue discussions. Somebody like to step up and speak on this issue?
And for clarity's sake, I know that we had a form out that would give people a chance to write down suggestions moving forward with budget, moving into the coming budget season. We would really love to see what the community wants us to put your tax dollars towards. So we'd appreciate any suggestions moving forward. And if you don't have them today, we are having budget workshops periodically, and you can always email in after this today. So it's not a do or die thing today either. So if something comes up and you think about it after the fact, just feel free to email us. But whoever wants to go first.
Go ahead. Actually, February the 10th
Is our
is
first
our
meeting.
budget. That's our first budget meeting at 10 o'clock.
Lenny Lewandowski, 554 Medcalf Drive. If you're talking about money and budget, please allocate money find a solution to the parking at the beach. It's atrocious. In 17 years I've been here, the only thing that past councils have done is make it more difficult to park at the beach. When the new bridge went in, all the side street parking was taken away. And I don't understand why. And handicap need to be addressed too. Put some money there, hire somebody, figure it out if you can't.
Okay. I just want to go ahead and make this known because we signed off on this yesterday. February the 3rd, that is on the agenda. Our parking discussion will start. We're going to start looking into something. That's something that I heard so much when I was out campaigning. So many people are, so we've got to implement something to help this situation.
Parking is terrible.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Rich Serrato, 517 Twisted Oak Lane. I've sent in a number of topics to be discussed, and I hope they will be discussed. However, there's one pet peeve that I have, and that is the fire fee and how it was increased by 75% without making that revenue increase revenue neutral. Now, the estimated tax that should have been reduced to maintain revenue neutrality was approximately 45% reduction, from 16 cents to 11 cents. This town has had a long-standing practice to maintain revenue neutrality. The added fire fee now generates nearly, and I'm using round numbers, nearly $1 million more a year. But that $1 million was not offset by the reduction. Is that my hearing aid?
No, that's a fire call.
The fire chief's looking.
That offset was not reduced because the tax rate was never reduced to the equivalent. Now, I provided you some topics, and I hope they will be discussed. I don't do this for myself, I do this for the taxpayers. We need to be mindful of the needs of others. This savings on a $350,000 house assessed at $350,000 is $175 a year. Our reserve balance is the highest it's ever been since the park, since we purchased the park. So it's about time that the citizens of this town, the elderly of this town, receive a dividend. If you don't understand what revenue neutrality is, then I encourage you, one, to look at the audit report and look at the excessive revenues, and two, sit down with Tara, and she'll explain it to you. I was appalled when the previous council voted 3-2 not to maintain the revenue neutrality policy. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hiram, do you have anything to add?
Unfortunately, Ms. Drop's not with us today. She's has a family emergency she's taking care of. But anyone is welcome to come in and talk to her about these things. She's our most educated person on that subject matter. As far as revenue neutrality for the town, since Mr. Serrato has brought this up multiple times, I've tried looking through all our policies in the past, everything I can come up with. The only thing we were able to find was in the policy that states that we have to put revenue neutral in our budget message, what revenue neutral would be. But this town's never observed an actual revenue neutral policy. I'm still researching even further back past the last 10 years, but I can't find anything, just so that y'all are aware of that. But we are looking into it. So, but like I said, with the fire fees and the knowledge on that, I don't know if the chief wants to talk about that right now. I know we've kind of addressed it to death. We will be going over it further in our budget discussions. But Tara really would be the person to speak with on that. And like I said, unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today.
And this is a subject that we can bring up when we start this budget workshop.
This will be a subject we have probably for a whole day in our budget
Yes, sir.
workshop.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is there anything else to say on that now?
I don't have anything. I know that there's discrepancy in how much it actually went up as percent base. Tara's got all that worked out. She's been working on it since last year's budget, trying to make head and tails of it for us for this year's budget as well. Y'all are welcome to comment. I don't really have anything else. I mean, if you'd like to ask the chief anything as well.
Does anyone have any comments?
I don't know, we,
Is that the fire fees
Use your
are
mic.
set by-
Pull your mic, please, sir.
The fire fees are set by the county, right?
Speak into the mic.
Fire fees are set by the county, if I understand it correctly. So it's not something that the town has the ability to reduce. Is that correct, chief?
There's a fire fee committee, the commissioner for our area of the county, there's an appointed person by the commissioner, myself, a member of council,
What's the mayor?
or the mayor, and the fire administrator for the county. So there's multiple facets that, and I think that's it.
And it's a recommendation board, not a decision board.
It's a recommendation, and then it goes before the county commissioners too.
So it is set by the county. It's not something that the town, they can have their input, but they can't,
Sure.
they can't
So
influence.
how does that work? I mean, you develop a budget for the fire department and then present that to the county, to this committee? And then the county makes a decision whether they accept or will support that budget from the fire fees? Or am I oversimplifying?
Yes and no. There's a projection based off the current fire fee percentage that actually probably within the next month or so, we'll get that projection for the next fiscal year. And then we'll work within that projection. In years past, the town of Sunset Beach also added more money into that on top of what was collected with fire fees. This year, we're going to be within the fire fee. There's nothing that we added to the budget that came out of the town coffers.
So the fire department is only supported by the fire fee, nothing from town taxes?
As of this year, that's right. In previous years, that we supplemented.
Okay, thank you.
If, I don't know how much of the discussion, Mr. Serrato's email that we all looked at and reviewed. If you want to get into that now, I can. I can talk about different things. Finance Director gave me some information based off of the percentages, but there's some inaccurate information that was disseminated to you all about fire department money, staffing, and comparing other jurisdictions. So whenever you want me to get into it, I can, or
If you're prepared to do it, please do it.
Yeah.
this conversation too is interesting, and tell me when you want me to stop, because I can go on for hours with
I don't want that.
No.
different data-driven points. But when these discussions come up, it was interesting. I just finished reading General Mattis's latest book, Call Sign Chaos. And he said one of his biggest challenges in his positions throughout the military were educating and showing policyholders why different strategic and tactical operations were needed. So here I am, and I have a bunch of stuff prepared and can talk about it for you to hopefully help council and the citizenry of Sunset Beach and in the fire district understand some of those things. As far as the fire fee specifically to start, and then I'll get into a few other things. And this information is from Tara that she gave to me to be prepared for some of these things. And I'm going to read it verbatim of what she gave me. But the fire fee increase last year, for example, was a 5% increase that was recommended by the fire board and enacted by the county. But the increase is not only due to rate increase, it also reflects development and has been restructured to be billed by square footage of the homes or acreage of the properties. So we've had lots of discussion around town about building and development. When a new house goes in, the revenue from fire fees goes up. So that's one point. The current percentage of revenue from outside town limits is approximately 30%, or around $550,000. 30% of the increased amount over the last 4 years is $291,000 plus that came from outside the town limits. When you talk about the Sunset Beach Fire Department, the town of Sunset Beach is 5.05 square miles. We also cover an additional just over 11 square miles of area outside the town limits. Current year average per household increase that we saw last year. The highest residential home increase would be between 7,800 or 7,000 and 8,000 square foot house. They saw an increase of $60 for the year. The lowest residential increase would be for mobile homes, and they saw an increase of $5.53 for the year. Most residential homes in town limits are between 1,000 and 2,000 square feet, and their increase was $8.88 for the year. Residential homes with square footage 2,000 to 3,000 were the next majority, with an increase of $18.13 per year. That information is on county documents. Fire fee calculation, anybody can have it. It shows that numbers, it shows different size dwellings, it shows different size acreage. It also shows different size commercial buildings. And it also is broken down between the rural district and properties within the town of Sunset Beach. So These are public records, anybody can have it. And some of the extra analysis that Tara did is useful and shows how some of those numbers were calculated or the increase. As far as a 75% increase, this drop isn't here, but I believe in past meetings she said that's not accurate. Go on a little bit further.
Chief, if I may, real quick, while you're looking up your next note, the reason that 75% is not accurate is because we can't, as he alluded to earlier, as development comes in, revenue goes up. We can't apples to apples this. We can't take 2016's numbers and compare it to 2019 or 2020's, largely because we have growth in this area. We're not stagnant, so we can't apply current rates to former numbers as a comparison basis, which I believe is what Tara has explained in the past, but for new members and newcomers alike, just to know that you can't take an increase in rates every year as an increase in our fire fees. It has to be an increase in the revenue generated by the base fire fee rate due to the growth and development in our community and outside our community, as the chiefs alluded to. We also have portions of Ocean Ridge's development in ours area. We have other growth happening just soon in our ETJ. There's a lot in our fire district. It's not just the town.
All right, next, I'd like to spend a minute on Sunset Beach Fire Department response area to make sure everybody's perfectly clear on it, how I came to these numbers. And then I'll get into a few other items. But there's this document I prepared, and it's been a work in progress since I've been here. It is on the fire department section of the website. There's always debate about population of the town, population of the fire district. When we say town of Sunset Beach, or we say Sunset Beach Fire Department, our area is just not those 5.05 square miles. There's funding and revenue from the fire fee tax that comes from areas outside of that. But when I did this document several months ago, the town of Sunset Beach full-time population per town data was 4,300 people. Now, 2020, they're doing the census track again. We'll see what it is. But we'll be waiting for probably a year yet to see what that is. Now, it's very difficult to calculate population. In some of my studies at Executive Fire Officer School at the National Fire Academy, I had to do a lot of stuff with the Census Bureau and looking at census tracts. Now, the following data I obtained from the U.S. Census Bureau. The town of Sunset Beach occupied housing units was 1,851. The town of Sunset Beach unoccupied housing units, 3,306. Town of Sunset Beach average household size of occupied units was 1.98. Town of Sunset Beach average household size of renter occupied units, 2.35. Conservative estimate of town population during full occupancy, 11,663. That is hard fact from the U.S. Census Bureau, and everything I could do in analysis in my studies and understanding of how to come up population. Now that's just for the town. And I might add that 2.35 number for renter occupied units. All of us can probably assume that there's more than 2.35 people in rentals on the island for 6 months out of the year. So that 11,663 persons doesn't take into account more than 2.35 people in a rental or anybody that's on the beach during the day that comes from out of town for the day. Okay, now, we add the following data has been obtained from Brunswick County. The Sunset Beach Fire Department Response District, 16.52 square miles. The town of Sunset Beach, as I mentioned previously, 5.05 square miles. The total number of property units inside the town of Sunset Beach is 5,112. Number of property units inside the rural district, 1,930. Well, Brunswick County haven't provided a rural district population, which by all indications would be difficult to determine using the U.S. Census Bureau data. Because the fire department's response district is in or within 4 different census tracts of the U.S. Census Bureau. So based on the Brunswick County's number of property units inside the rural district, 1,930, and the U.S. Census Bureau's average persons per household figure for North Carolina, which is 2.53, the most factual population estimate for the Sunset Beach Fire Department rural district alone is 4,883. So you add those numbers with the inside the town population numbers, you add the renter occupied numbers, and we're coming up with a lot bigger number than I see thrown around a lot for just the town of Sunset Beach of 4,300. Now, if anybody has a better option of determining population in those areas, I'm all for listening. But a lot of studies, education, and analysis that I've done with a lot of smart people, that's the best way I could do it for here. Now, I'm not sure, I guess I'll get into a little bit of the question Mr. Serrato's had, and he's had in the past, and go through some of that. But, and I'm not sure who got the email of questions other than council and maybe all of us at the town. But in the past, or since I've been here for 15 months, I've looked at operational analysis, staffing, response times, training, with great help from Deputy Chief Childers, now Deputy Chief Adams. Talked to other fire chiefs in the area. I've met with chiefs in Horry County and North Myrtle Beach. The Emergency Service Director of Brunswick County. And really a lot of the general consensus is we can all do better. And we're trying, and I will always try to push things forward for the betterment of the people. I impress upon the men and women of the fire department, our number one goal is to take care of people. Does it take people to take care of people? Yes. You can't do it with robots. You can't do it with widgets. You can't do it by reducing staffing. I can show you data till we're all blue in the face and we want to go home at 7 o'clock at night. But you're all welcome to come see me at the firehouse and I'll show you anything. Sure.
All this data is becoming mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
I've been here 17 years, and I've called for assistance from EMS once. I mean, you're talking about all these people, it sounds like you guys do nothing but run on jobs all the time. But like I say, I've been here 17 years, I called you once.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of people in this room have never called.
So it's interesting. Some people use it multiple times. Some people don't. But it's an insurance policy.
Getting to be an expensive one.
You can debate how expensive things are all the time as well. I have car insurance. Luckily, I did recently. I've used homeowners insurance, not because of an error on me, but because of weather. I understand your point, but being fiscally responsible and providing a service above and beyond. You know, let me jump to one data. In 2019 alone. Now, here's a service that all fire departments don't provide, but we do. And a lot of them say they do, or might do some of the time, but we do whenever anybody calls. In 2019, we visited 133 homes.
Over the course of a year.
Just to change smoke alarm batteries, install new ones.
So the fire department goes to homes and installs new batteries?
Excuse
Yes.
me. We did ask at the beginning not to do back and forth. I'm gonna remind the chief that, so. just-
Okay. All right, let me continue then.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna,
Yeah, we need to
we're getting into the territory
get it
of
close
budget
as you
discussion,
can, and let's
though.
tie it in so we can get back to the meeting that we got the citizens here for. I understand what you're doing, and I'm glad you are, but I guess that's something that we'll have to look into at another
Well,
time. bring
we're
it-
going to do this
In
in detail during the budget talks.
Right, and in March, the department heads will be coming on the 9th and 10th to do their presentations, of which you'll hear most of this again from the fire chief.
So we can let the public know what's going to happen on the 9th, what's going to happen on the 10th, and citizens are all welcome to come and attend those budget meetings.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that good? You good?
Thanks, chief.
All right. Someone else? Yes, ma'am.
Karen Joseph, 915 Sandpiper Bay Drive. Perhaps this is a happier suggestion. I'd like the Budget Committee to discuss the possibility of bringing back a committee that we used to have in Sunset Beach. It was the Beautification Committee, and they worked directly with right, with Dustin, with the Public Works Department. And once we hired a landscaper, I believe they worked with the landscaper. And since we are lucky enough to have a nice surplus, perhaps you could think about some beautification in the town. When we drive through Charlotte, for instance, we see flower boxes and hanging flower baskets at various times of the year. And I think our town could use a little TLC. So I ask you to consider creating the beautification committee and empowering them to work with the landscaper and the Public Works Department to do a little beautification of Sunset Beach. Thank you.
Someone else? Yes,
Still
sir.
Still on budget, right?
Yeah, still on budget and financials.
Well, I don't want to jump in at the wrong place, but Chief, I'd like to, if you could clarify something for me.
Name.
Name and
Thomas-
address.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thomas Freeman, 423 32nd Street, property owner for 33 years. Chief, I heard you, you're explaining the service area. You went from approximately 5 square miles to the 11 square miles. Tell me what legislation or regulation requires the city to cover that other service area, and how does it benefit Sunset Beach? Thank you.
And so I don't have the document from the county right in front of me, but years ago, the county established the fire district areas. And it's based off of the Department of Insurance 5-mile map. So if you take big circle, 5-mile circle around Station 1, that's kind of how they come up with that. And really, it gets close to, if you look at Ocean Isle, and Sunset Beach, kind of the middle line halfway between Sunset Beach and Ocean Isle is how that happened. Now, one thing, and then Station 2 was built, And one thing that's interesting, those maps haven't been updated since then. So I would anticipate if the 5-mile map was updated, the area would actually expand and improve potential insurance rates for maybe more so some commercial, but also residential properties as well. The benefit, if we just had our 5.05 square miles, we wouldn't have the capabilities, probably equipment-wise, personnel-wise, to provide a bigger service. You know, I can look at national data, and for a structure fire, it takes more than 2 or 3 people on one engine to put out a fully involved, or not even a room and contents fire. You know, I'll give you one small example based off the National Fire Protection Association Standard 1710, that the recommended minimum for a single-family dwelling fire is 14 firefighters. Okay? Now, I'm not necessarily saying we have to have 14 firefighters on duty 24/7. We have other means of making that happen with full-time, part-time, paid-on-call members that come back when there is a bigger incident. And we also have support of some of our mutual aid companies. But operationally, I don't want to get in the weeds too far operationally, but
Speak to the 11s for a minute, if you could, please.
yeah, so it's a total of 16. The 5 plus another 11, so our 16 square miles that is considered the Sunset Beach Fire District. Without Station 2, for example, and I have 4-minute response time maps. I had a very smart friend of mine in New Mexico calculate 4-minute response times from Station 1 and Station 2, and 8-minute response times. And anybody can have those as well to see, but if we don't have Station 2 in the rural district, it's 8 or 10 minutes to get to Sandpiper Bay. It's 8 or 10 minutes to get through Georgetown. There's no direct through route from Station 1.
Is there a legislative requirement that Sunset Beach adopt and adapt to this larger area? Could those communities not incorporate themselves and provide their own fire protection? Would the county allow that?
The county, somebody else would have to provide it.
Sure. But that somebody else wouldn't be Sunset Beach, it wouldn't be our burden.
Potentially, but I don't think that definitely, I don't think would be a good path to go down. And legislatively, I don't know how that, it really, a lot of it comes back to that Department of Insurance rating in the 5-mile map and having response times.
But at the core of my question, I desire a smaller footprint of Sunset Beach. I desire a smaller community, if you will, so that we don't have the fiscal burdens placed upon us. That's sort of the root of my question, but you adequately answered. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think some of the fiscal burden is shared on a greater scale, so just the residents of Sunset Beach aren't carrying that entire burden as well.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Can I, just
Mr.
one,
Mayor.
what's the insurance impact of 4-minute response and 8-minute response? You know, generally, is it, if somebody's in an 8-minute response, is their insurance rate cause a higher premium?
And so a lot of it is your hydrant within a 1,000 foot of a fire hydrant, or if your home, your dwelling, or your business is within 1,000 foot of a fire hydrant, that's part of it. Response time, that's where the 5-minute map comes in, because within that 5 mile, or the 5 mile radius, shows that response times are going to be decreased fire typically, and there's various timeframes, but fire doubles every minute, as an example. Brain cells, without oxygen die very quickly. So minutes count at the end of the day. It's very difficult. I've done analysis on response times, and it's challenging to put a price on someone's life, especially when it's somebody that's living in your house or your neighbor that you like or somebody else. So those things all come into consideration, and not everything can we put a monetary value on all the time, but I don't want to see anything happen to John. He's sitting next to me today. I think I answered it, maybe.
I think you have. I mean, the policy discussion is, do we like the level of service that we have? Do we want to maintain the level of service that we have for our citizens and our residents? Or do we want to reduce that level of service and cause a greater increase in risk? I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie, would
It's-
you like to say something?
This will all be discussed probably too much at budget time. But if you want a modern, well-equipped, well-staffed, professional fire department, it costs money. And don't listen to some of these numbers that come out of the air. The numbers Ms. Drop will have, and those will be exact.
Anyone else? All right, moving on. Any more on this topic?
Suggestions for budget?
Suggestions, budget, financial, anything? All right. Now we'll move to the open part. We've got about 16, 17 minutes, and I'll call for a quick recess if anybody needs to use the bathroom, get a breath or whatever. But let's start it up. Who would like to speak on that? And what I would ask is, if you come up and once, whatever your subject is, when we get through with that subject, I'm gonna ask if anybody else has anything pertaining to that subject to come up then and do it, so we can keep it sort of grouped to try to give everybody the answers that they're looking for, or at least get them on the right path to be some. So who's up? Or who's interested in coming up and speaking?
Don't be shy.
Carol Santavica, Forest Drive, Southwest. Let's get Cabanas out of the way. I know that you haven't come to your final conclusion yet, because I think any vote has to take place at a Monday meeting. But be aware, some of us that live here who are residents also rent cabanas. So if you're going to put limits on the number of cabanas that a vendor can supply on any one day, are you going to give them a credit if I rent one? Because I'm not an outlander. I'm a little confused as to why we would try to micromanage these small little businesses who probably have a hard time providing as many cabanas as people want them to do. Why try to solve a problem that doesn't yet exist? So let everybody else say what they have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Does
I
anyone have a response?
I have a response.
Anybody else have a question tied to them? Are there any other?
He's got it.
Go ahead.
He wants to say something.
I don't consider discussing how to do this to be micromanaging. This is a business that is needed. It's obvious. And what we're trying to do is take care of our townspeople by setting aside a certain amount of space for our town residents to set up cabanas. We're also trying to make sure that these cabana vendors all follow the rules, not only of setting up the cabanas, but of the traffic and parking regulations. This is not an easy decision for any of us, and we're working on it. And I know it's impossible to please everybody, but we're going to try.
Text on cabanas?
Linda Rudick, 1008 Park Road, and I just read the Beacon's write-up of the last meeting that dealt with cabanas. I don't even go to the beach, but I have visitors that love the beach. And I just wondered, I wasn't up on all the intricacies, only what was in the paper. But if I have a visitor that comes sort of unannounced and wants to have a cabana, I want you to make any rules that allow that last-minute request for a cabana to be satisfied.
Can I ask for a clarification there? You know, the vendors are not the only ones that can set up. Any citizen, any visitor can bring their own cabana and put it up.
I don't have one, and I'm not going to buy one.
Okay. I mean, I just
We're
want
going to rent.
I want to be clear that your
Last-minute
concern
rentals.
is that would be a business decision for the vendors. You know, we're not giving them a timeline or how long they have to set them up for.
Are you giving them a maximum? I thought I read
we're gi-
180 was maximum.
We're given a max limit that vendors can have. That's the direction that we're going at this time.
So there's
But-
no
but
way that a last minute could exceed a maximum allowed? There's no maximum that can be put up by these vendors on the beach?
They will have permits for the vendors that they can, for the cabanas that they can put up.
What was the
And then-
180 number I read about?
That was an earlier discussion.
That's not
We-
current?
We haven't, on the 3rd of February, we'll kind of lock down where we stand on numbers, on permits, and other controls.
All right,
Okay.
just keep in mind,
Let me add
last
this.
minute.
Let me add this while we're in there. But we've had some discussion or some comments from many of the vendors, and right now what they're telling us, if we get up to around 120, they think they're gonna be covered. The only time that they would be worried at all would be July the 4th. I mean, when we specified it to the meeting, started talking, they reached out to us, they sent to the town email. Guy had it broke down for each company. They went around and talked to the ones that they know for sure are interested, and they said 120 would cover it.
Well, I'm just
So we're
saying.
just trying to be balanced.
I'm
there.
just saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Consider the last minute renter, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, Cabanas? Mr. Lee, let him speak. Your name and your address, please, sir.
Yeah, Joseph Sanovica, Forest Drive, Sunset Beach. If the cabana people can't set, these rental places can't set up until 7 o'clock in the morning, do they have to, will you force them to set up in particular spots? Because what I'm thinking is if I have people who are gonna go to the beach, just like beaches for the last 50 years, better get out there early, guys, and set your tent up, right? So if I get out there at 6 o'clock, am I gonna know where I can put my tent or my cabana? Will I be on
I don't think
somebody's,
anybody can, if I'm not
prescribed
mistaken,
spot?
nobody can put a tent up until 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
That's
the 7
earliest.
o'clock rules for everybody. Nobody
Really?
can, yes.
Really?
But the latest conversation did not have designated spacing. It's a public beach, it's first come, first served.
First come, first served.
That's the way we currently handle it, and that's the way the last conversation leaned towards. But again, when we talk about it on the 3rd, they're gonna make those final decisions. But it's 7 o'clock's the timeline for anybody and everybody.
So if I want to get out there and get a spot, say as close to the pier as I can get, whatever that is, all right, I have to wait until 7 o'clock and then I gotta fight the guys, who are in the business in putting it up? How's that work? Well,
Same way it has been.
Who will have priority over a particular spot?
First one there.
First one there? Okay,
You'll have to hustle, Joe.
yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
But that's a beach rule, period. The 7 to 7 is for everybody and anybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, that's not just the vendors.
Yes, sir.
Leonard Lewandowski, 555 Metcalf, 554. I suggest that you speak to the mayor and the council over at Ocean Isle. They did away with cabanas, and there was a whole bunch of nonsense, people screaming about it, yelling about it. Well, they did away with cabanas. And you know what? Everyone takes umbrellas, and everything's fine. And there's none of this discussion about how, when, what time, how many. We don't need them. Bring an umbrella.
Thank you,
Big
sir.
umbrellas.
I want to remind everybody, we are not Ocean Isle Beach.
Well, you might want to talk to them, find out how they did away with them, that everything's fine over there.
Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir. I'll get you next, sir.
Chuck Quinlan, 7827 High Market. My question really to the council is, and maybe I'm out of turn here, Shannon, but are we going to discuss at the budget meeting the beach entirely that day, or can we talk about it now?
Are you talking about beach patrol?
No, you're talking about, you talked about her having a budget meeting on the beach and stuff like that.
We're just having an in-general budget meeting where the different departments will come in,
Oh, okay.
and it is a public, where the public can come and
Well, then
listen.
my question is, the average citizen in Sunset Beach, including myself, who has to have a walker and a cane to get to the beach, can't get to the beach.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, you've already authorized 350 more homes on 904 that Bill Clark is coming in. That's 700 cars. You've got 72 apartments coming in on High Market Street. That's probably another 100 cars. At 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, it's 70 degrees at the beach now. You can't get a parking place anyway. What are we going to do with all these people, especially the ones that come out of town? The people that pay the taxes here deserved a chance, at least, to get to the beach. You've got 4 handicap parking places at the beach is hardly enough.
Yes, sir.
The pier is closed now, you can't park in that lot. Why it's not open, I have no idea. I just wonder what the council is going to do to allow taxpayers to at least go to the beach. Can we come up with a sticker for the residents that can put on their cars to say they actually are a resident of Sunset Beach?
If I can
You
get
know,
to-
Myrtle Beach charges $8 an hour to park.
Yes, sir. If I can get to that just 1 second, like I
Sure.
said, February the 3rd meeting, we are gonna start in the parking discussion. We are gonna look to come up with a plan. Like I said, we've got to take care of our citizens. I agree 100%. I heard that so much. But that's the thing. We're gonna start then. We're gonna look. We're gonna take input from the people. We've got to work something at the end of the day for our citizens here, most definitely. I mean, I feel the same way. I don't think it's fair for me to pay taxes here and live here and then go out there and have to pay to park or not have a place to park. I mean, I have a wife that's handicapped. I understand that completely. There's not enough spots out there.
No.
But that's something with this study that's coming up and we start getting in it, that's something we have to stress and work toward.
That's
And that's
good,
what
because
we're
I
gonna-
just don't know
we're
where you're
gonna
gonna,
try to
yeah, I don't know where you're gonna put the cars. I mean,
I understand completely.
it's incredible. I mean, it's a long walk up over the
Yes,
bridge.
sir. Most definitely. Long bicycle ride too. I can speak
A
for
lot
that.
of, well,
Mr.
good.
Mayor.
February 3rd?
February the 3rd meeting, yes, sir.
Mr.
Yes-
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to point out that Sunset Beach is roughly a 2-mile island, 2 miles long. It has a certain carrying capacity that needs to be determined. Sunset Beach Island is the smallest developed barrier island on the North Carolina coast, but it is also the most beautiful island on the North Carolina coast, and probably the whole East Coast.
So
Shannon, real quick. Also, so one of the things in response to this gentleman is, we've heard a lot of these ideas before, and some of them we think are great ideas, but we have to work within the statutes of North Carolina law and what we're allowed to do or not do, because North Carolina beaches are trust for public land beaches, so to some degree, we can't limit others from coming into the area as much as we'd like to, or to put up people suggested putting up a toll or things like that. We're legally not allowed to do certain things because we have to provide access for everybody. So those are the situations that we're all going to have to try to work through as we try to find a solution for this. It's not just Sunset Beach. All of Brunswick County, many of you probably already know Brunswick County is the 4th largest, fastest growing county in the nation at this point. Horry County's going through the same thing. Surfside Beach just had to spend money, but those are across the border into South Carolina. They may have different laws to work within than what we do. So we're going to have to reach out to other communities who are also going through this as well to try to solve this issue for our citizens.
Yes, ma'am.
Denise Lewandowski, 554 Metcalf. And Shannon, you and I discussed this on 3rd Street, handicap.
Yes,
There's
ma'am.
one spot. Between 1st and 3rd, that should be all handicapped and across the street, because that's the only access. And it takes my husband, I mean, I'm down the beach and set up, and he's still walking because he has problems. And also down on the west end, there's a spot. So something has to be done for the handicap. And there's a lot of people, young, old, and in between.
Yes, ma'am.
And residents should have a sticker that makes them first in line.
Priority.
Hiram,
Thank you. So-
can we look into the requirements for handicap parking? How many we can have or how many we have to have?
We can look into that for the designated actual parking lots. With on-street parking, we'll have to work with DOT to see what they'll allow us to add in there. We can put up a sign, but we're also not, we can't delineate. Then we had that problem with trying to put bollards in or something to delineate spaces. And since it's a state right away, they don't let us put anything physical objects in there. Half the reason we did the sidewalk project was to give a wide enough path for people to park, get out, get onto that sidewalk, and get down to an access. That's a short-term fix, just to help. We're looking at other options for other handicap accesses that if we can make them. The other issue we have with doing that is taking our existing public accesses with the existing dune structure and what the state will allow us to go out with and how wide our accesses are, and if we can make a ramp, if we have to do a zigzag ramp. There's a lot of factors that we constantly look at for that, and I know that parking's a huge issue on that, but like I said, the access is also not there for us to add extra parking in there, and we can't delineate, becomes an issue. We can put signs up, and that's something we are talking about doing, but we haven't actually gone through the process again with DOT to make sure that we can take up that much of their right-of-way and designate for one use. That's something I'm waiting for an answer back since last year, and I keep asking, and it's DOT that we work with, and I'm not gonna blame on that, but we can look into it further. We can explore other options. I know we're talking about multiple parking possible solutions. I will advise when it comes to a sticker and priority, that works with parking lots, not parking on streets. Again, it's a state right-of-way. We have no authority to sit there and say it's for citizens only. If it's an actual physical property that we own and pay for with just our tax dollars, that's something we can look at. But you still run into the issue of, and we talked about this last year, and we'll talk about it again, I'm sure, but you still run into the issue, someone still got there first. Your sticker doesn't give you priority to have that car moved, and then you get to take that space, and then plus, we're still only gonna have a limited number of spaces. We'll have more stickers than there are spaces. Once that gets filled up with citizens, you know, the citizens that has a sticker can't find a parking space, is still gonna have to go find somewhere else to go. So it's not a perfect system. We are looking at those options. We have considered them for years, and I believe last year staff did recommend to go with the parking committee study from years ago to actually hire and look at a traffic engineer, and that's an idea that we'll be bringing to y'all during your next meeting on that subject, to go and get a consultant and tell us what we can do, where we can do it, and how to best proceed with it moving forward. If we want to make parking a priority, we're going to have to actually get someone here that knows more than we do on working on those systems.
Let me go to you next, and then we'll come to you.
Mark Selisker, 904 East Main. I will not be able to be here in the early February times when you all are talking about this parking, so I just wanted to request that you all consider the folks that own property on Main Street and what we have to go through getting in and out of our houses, putting up with blocked driveways, people trespassing on our property. You know, we've got the sidewalk, we've got the bike path. You know, backing in and out of driveways now is a dangerous thing to do in the middle of the season. So please consider in your budgetary work, maybe buying some of these lots and putting some parking in and doing something to limit or get rid of this Main Street parking problem. Because I've got friends that do rent their houses. They're telling me that renters come in, they put up with dodging all these cars for a week, and, you know, they don't come back. So if people are worried about revenue from their houses, this is certainly a detrimental issue during the season. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Next, yes, sir.
Glenn Lewandowski, 554 Metcalf. I think the town board needs to consider mainland people in parking more than renters being upset because they have to take precaution backing out of their out of the rented driveway. I mean, you've been looking at what you're gonna do about parking since the new bridge went in, it seemed, even before that, and nothing has been done. You just look at it, you just don't come up with any solutions. I mean, you put all those no parking signs on Main Street, yet you can't enforce it. Why are they even there? I mean, the attitude seems to be on the council and on the island, the people who rent their houses for the summer, is that we want our renters to be happy, and we don't care about anybody else coming to the beach. We don't want you to come to the beach. Stay away. No parking, all that public access, what good is it with no parking? It's a joke.
Thank you.
Do something about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Patty Hall, 839 Magnolia. I have a couple things. A couple weeks ago on a Sunday, we had a small fire down the street from me. I want to say that I was very impressed with the response from the fire departments and the other departments that came that you have multiple, contracts with. It was awesome, and I really appreciate the fire department. Police department, y'all are fantastic. I love the police department. And as a single lady and a retiree, the response time for medical, it's just, I can't say thank you. It's nice, and I don't mind paying that money for a little extra fire protection and a fire department or a police department. That's awesome. Yeah, parking is an issue, but my thing is the emergency exit down or entrance down on Sunset Beach. A couple of winters ago, we put a whole bunch of gravel down there and then put the wooden thing over the dune. Did we not know we didn't have access or we could lose access to that lane before we spent that money to do that?
If I may on that real quick,
Yeah.
Two things. We had an easement for
Yeah.
that property, so we were within our rights to do that.
Yes.
But
But you also had a 30-day thing where the owner could reduce it.
But at the same time, our attorney won't let us speak on this subject matter.
Okay.
So,
I don't blame the lady that owns that property at all. It's her property, and she has the right to do what she wants. It was very nice because it was wide, and I have a dog, and the accesses to the beach are very narrow, and when you're trying to get dog by dog, it's not a good situation. So I love that emergency exit down there, but, I can live with it. The other thing, I have one other thing, and I'm sorry. Do we have an ordinance in town about waste? I mean, I have a couple of places down from me, and there are, in the middle of these two houses, are still trees from not the last hurricane, but the hurricane before that. And not only is it unsightly, but, there's critters. I just think, do we have an ordinance about how neat you have to keep your property or waste like that?
as far as neat, that's subject.
I know it's a subject to everybody's opinion, but
But we have grass height, we have junk clauses that if you can determine that it's junk. As far as vegetation and like overgrowth of like vines that someone may think is nice, someone may think is not nice, and down trees, we don't have anything that specifically covers that until, like you said, with the animals, when it becomes a health issue, then we can do something about it. So my recommendation is just call our code enforcement officer, and give the addresses.
okay.
And that way he can go take a look at them when he's back on duty on Monday.
Okay, the grass height is fine, but these are 10-foot tall piles that are,
If he can determine, something like that is a breeding ground.
Yeah.
And that's when we can actually do something about that type of stuff.
okay.
There's nothing to prevent someone having a fallen tree on their property.
Well, I agree, but 2 years is a long time.
I know,
yeah.
but there's nothing that we have that would stop that from
Okay.
happening.
All right.
Let's say someone wanted to use it as landscaping and decorative. I know that's not the case here, but that's why we don't have something like that.
Okay.
But when it becomes an issue of housing of pests and vermin,
Yeah,
that's when we can actually do something about it. So he'll go out, do his investigation, and apply what rules we can apply to get it, what we can be rectified.
all right, thank
So
you.
just call in or email Officer Hall,
Okay,
and just let him know the address, and he'll be more than happy to take a look at it.
all right, thank you. Thank y'all.
you.
Doing a
Yes,
good job.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We sort of got off a little bit. Is there any more that goes to Cabanas? Let me just get that one out first. Anybody else on that subject? Okay. Now, we got into parking some. Do we have another question about parking? Okay. Open back up then. Yes, sir. Please, go ahead. We're going to.
My name is Mac Jones. I live at 307 Magnolia. And I'm with the lady on the ordinances. I understand we have an ordinance officer now. And the health issue is one thing. But, you know, I think it was called Slumset Beach one time or another, as I recall from a newspaper article. We've got a lot of places here that people have abandoned, and they're not well taken care of. They're not taken care of at all. We also have ordinances as far as structures other than your primary structure. I brought this to someone's attention, and they told me that I had to file a complaint. Now, this was against the city ordinance. I brought it to the attention of the person that was responsible, not the new guy, but someone else. And they told me I had to sign a complaint before they could enforce the ordinance, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. And that's all I have to say.
Do you have anything to add to that, Hiram, on those things?
I don't know. I mean, some things may require someone to actually complain about it, especially when it comes to zoning laws. You need to follow a due process chain sometimes. I'm not sure if that would have been the case here or not. We do recommend people make a complaint so that we have a reason to be, basically going on someone's property and enforcing something that if we don't see it from the public right of way, isn't something we usually can do. However, if you see it from the public right of way, there should be no problem with doing it. So my recommendation is you should, if that comes across and you're not satisfied, just ask for someone higher up and we can work that out. But I personally do believe in having written complaints myself. Just it's easier if we end up going to court over something, due process chain can be followed.
Yes.
Wouldn't the first step be, though, for Mr. Jones to again let town staff know
Yeah.
which property it is, where the concern is,
And
so we can take a look at it?
right, and if it's property issues and structural issues that aren't what we consider nuisances, just contact the inspections department. Mr. Rademacher and Mr. White would be more than happy to talk to anybody about any issues and explain what we can and cannot do.
Could I comment on that?
Excuse-
Could I respond to that?
Yes, sir.
I did talk to someone in the inspection department. At that time, they said there was no ordinance enforcement officer, it was just me. And the guy told me that I had to sign a complaint, which I didn't want to do. The guy got out of something that I wanted to do, and he did it without asking. And now he's there, and they don't want to do anything, and I'm not trying to get anything done against this person. But I'm just saying, you got an ordinance officer out there months, they not see these overgrown lots, they don't see these, structures that are legitimate. I just don't get it.
I understand, sir. That's why we rely on the public to give us input, because we're driving around, we go into places, we don't see everything. It's impractical to think we will see everything. But like I said, if you weren't getting where you needed to go, you could have gone up higher and asked for someone else.
This has been a while back. I will contact the code enforcement officer that you have now and speak with you.
Right, but my point to that being is, if it's nuisance related, it would go to their code enforcement officer. If it's a development thing, like a structure, house, that goes to the inspections department. Different laws covered by different departments. So if you just want to come in and talk with one of us, and we can figure out who you need to speak with on that issue. Because I understand that the terminology may be confusing for some. Our code enforcement officer affects things that are nuisance abatement. Overgrown lots, junk cars, general ordinances. But if it's found in our UDO and it has to do with your structure or house or what you use your property for, that goes to the inspections department. So my point being, though, we won't make you sign a complaint on something. Just talk to us and make sure that we can do something about it.
We're going to call for a brief recess.
Yep, go ahead.
Drenched.
We'll call this meeting back to order. Let everybody be seated. Everybody's in here. Okay, I'm going to open the floor back up. Do I have someone with a subject they would like to come up? Please come up to the mic. Yes, sir.
I'm John Farrell, 624 Oyster Bay Drive. I have a personal health concern. I have asthma. One of the reasons I moved to this community was because of the environment, the fresh salt air. And at the last council meeting, I had to get up and leave because of the indoor air pollution. And people come in, they wear perfumes, they wear colognes, they use fragrant oils, and for people like me, that interferes with my breathing, so I have to leave. So I don't know if there's anything that can be done. This is a no smoking place. If it could be also determined to be free of other fragrances, then it would make it a much healthier place for everybody. Thank you.
Except for deodorant, correct? They can still wear deodorant though, definitely, right? Would be
Yes.
some stinking armpits up in here today.
Please.
Thank you, sir.
I don't wear perfume.
Just non-scented deodorant.
Yeah. I just can't have white because it'll be stripes. Who's up next? Yes, sir?
James Geiger, live on 31st Street. I just wanted to say that Sunset Beach is, I'm blessed to be here. It's one of the best places to live on this planet, and I want to thank all y'all for the job you do. I'm very blessed to have you and be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You can come speak again.
All right, would someone else like to speak? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm Jim Foley, 1210 North Shore Drive. There's a walkway on 13th Street that was rebuilt last year, but the beach has changed, and when you get to that final step, there's about 12 to 18 inches to get down to the beach. And so they need to add another step or two. I noticed the one down 14th that they've just finished up, that they got the steps much lower. And I think they need to go back and do that one too.
Yes, sir. Thank you for bringing that to us. I think
That was
that is
12th Street.
actually being handled now, correct?
Yeah, what street was that?
13th Street, 13th.
Is there a walkway on 13th Street?
Well, it's like 12, 13. It's between 12 and 13. Well, tell him.
We'll fix it. When we built
You have
that
to turn the
walkway,
microphone on. Talking to.
when we built that walkway, the sand was an issue. Actually, we buried about 2 steps. Over the period of time from when we built it last year, the winds had blown the sand away. So we'll have to go in there and add another step at the bottom to get it below the sand. Because the other one, we done the same thing. The one we just built, we buried a couple of steps in the sand because of that. So with the wind at the time, it just keeps blowing the sand away. So we'll have to address it. I looked at it, matter of fact, this past Thursday, Friday, when I was out there with it, I looked at it, we'll have to do something about it.
Next. Nobody else? Last call? All right, I'm gonna move on to the part where the questions that were sent in. We'll read brief on those. Most of these are questions, some of them are just statements. I guess if we can answer some of them today, they'll be answered. If not, they will be given to the administrator. He will give it to the staff that takes care of that. If you want to reach back out through an email, through a phone call, if you have a certain question, please do, and we'll try to get back with you. Like I said, accountability is what we're trying to be, and I just appreciate y'all all. First up, this come from a Mary Willoughby. question was about what is the plan to monitor and control the populations of the alligators at Sunset Beach? Does anyone in staff have something to do?
The chief is fighting those.
I'm an expert now, having moved from northern Ohio into the alligator capital of the world, I guess. There are a lot of concerns about the population of alligators, and I've addressed this with North Carolina Wildlife. And there are options, of course, as many of you may know. Towns can elect to have a controlled hunt. You have to apply for a permit to do that. There's also in the works, I don't have a timeline on it because in my context with the North Carolina Department of, or North Carolina Wildlife, to have the town designated as nuisance alligator agents. We can have people specially trained to move the alligators that do become a nuisance, that are continually in the roadway and someone's property, or just creating a danger to public health and welfare. But they haven't had that program fully addressed yet. It's not something that we can do. When this was talked about over a year ago, my recommendation was not to have a hunt, but rather to have the alligator agents, that we could relocate the alligators to safe locations within what is prescribed by wildlife. At this time, that's not something we can do, so I don't know if perhaps we could address the option of a hunt. Outside of that, if there's a nuisance alligator, we would have to contract with somebody to move it. Our animal control officer is able to do that, but he is only able to do that in an emergency situation where a person or a domestic animal is being threatened. Those are protected animals, and it is a crime for even a police officer to put their hands on one. So unless it is urgent, I'll give you an example. We had one find its way to the beach and into the ocean last summer. We moved that one because it's a threat to the folks that are in the beach. It's easier to go get the alligator and move it versus telling 500 people, watch out for the alligator that's in the water. So right now that's what we're doing. I'm not a fan of the hunt. I would rather not kill these animals, especially that they're endangered, and there's a long process to do that. But what we're doing now is just doing our best to make sure that we have a handle on the ones that are here.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Second question was, what is the Sunset Beach plan to build additional sidewalks, and it's got other than Main Street, on the island?
This also is from Mrs. Willoughby.
This is also from Ms. Willie, I apologize.
Presently, there is no plan for additional sidewalks. I don't believe we have anything in the works. I also don't feel that there's any right-of-way large enough for us to construct additional sidewalks and still maintain ease of flow for water and other water and pedestrians. I know sidewalks for pedestrians, but if you notice Main Street, most people don't even use the sidewalk, so.
Let me ask you this question while you're on that, because I know I talked to you the other day about when that meeting that I was at with our congressman had talked about there's gonna be some grants, and you told me that y'all had already looked into putting in for some of those grants that's coming up in the second quarter, the money that's gonna be available. As for sidewalk stuff and all is what they told me, that was Mr.
Oh, the
Mr.
GSATs, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not on the island. We were looking at stuff on mainland.
Yeah, that's
dealing
what it
with-
says. She's saying other than mainland, Main Street, other than Main Street.
On the island is what
Yeah.
the question asked for, so that's what I was responding to. But yeah, we are looking at possible projects along Sunset Boulevard here on the mainland to increase walkability, getting people to the bridge. I know a lot of people like to run and jog, and if we gave them a mobility path, that would get them off the highway. So that's something we are looking into putting money into. And then other transportation issues can come up that we can apply for some of that money for. That money comes around every 2-3 years anyway, so. Traffic improvements, roadway improvements, walkability, accessibility, those are things that money can be spent on. We just don't have any, specific to this question, we don't have anything related to the island at this time in any books, but we are looking at stuff on the mainland side of.
Yes, sir. Another question by Ms. Mary Willoughby. Please explain the issues and concerns regarding cabanas, which we have talked about today, so hopefully we have answered the question. But she just said every year the regulations appear, change, disappear. It will be helpful to understand why this is a serious concern and issues that cause never seem to be finalized. And I think we addressed some of that today. We'll be addressing some as we go through the continuing meetings. Next, we have a question from Ms. Willoughby. It says, other nearby coastal towns are moving forward with simple environment restrictions on the use of plastics such as plastic bags, plastic straws, etc. What is Sunset Beach's plan to address the use of plastics and care for our beach?
On that matter, this council has addressed that in a proposal that they've placed with the ERC. The ERC has a laundry list of things that the council agreed upon in, I believe, a climate change document presented by Councilman Corbett previously, that they are looking at and determining what they want to work on and push forward with. So presently, to answer that question about the use of plastics and care on our beach, that is being looked at by our Environmental Resource Committee at some point moving forward.
There are some things that our local restaurants can do, and Fibbers is the only one I know that's doing it. They do not give you straws. You cannot get a straw there. And the other thing is their plastic cups. They're made from corn, and they're disposable. They will break down. But I don't know if we can make everybody do that.
Is everybody good on that one? All right, we'll go to the next question. This is the last one from Ms. Willoughby. The recycle calendar shows every other week pickup for recycling on the island during summer months. What is the plan to support the rental season with recycling services?
There's no change to the recycling services from the previous years on the beach. It still will be weekly on Saturdays. The sticker that Waste Industries / GFL put out only included what they're contracted to do through their county obligations, not through what we separately contract with them on throughout the season. So we've placed a new calendar online, right, Lisa? That went up? Okay, good. We made it this month. We got it put up on the website. There's a new calendar that anybody can go take a look at. It shows the pickup dates for the complete rest of the year and breaks it down to when it switches over to the island recycling, when their recycling moves on to Saturdays and becomes weekly. So I understand the stickers they were putting out were printed only solely based on their obligations through the county taxes.
Anyone else? Moving on, we have a question sent in by Debbie Tuttle. Town needs a trash collector that can pick up garbage on Wednesdays and in the summertime after 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings. This is a vacation land. I don't know why the town can't ask for pickups when the town needs them. Why is the vendor dictating the terms? Aren't we paying them?
Largely because it's done through a contract. It's not a pay-for-play kind of thing. So they're picked up based on our contract with them. As far as to the time of day pickup, they've been here, they've stood in this room and told y'all this the last two times Alan from Waste Industries was here, that Saturday pickup for them, it's easier for their guys to get in and out when there's less traffic on the roads. And after 10 o'clock, you have the change-out period of people leaving. You've got day trippers here, and you got people coming in to check in. And their trucks are, it's really it is a hazard and a dangerous issue to have those trucks trying to drive down those roads and collect those cans when that many people are out and about. I do agree with them on that stance. They said they will try to work with us and get here later, as late as they can, but they can't promise after 10 o'clock pickups.
Thanks, sir. Next up, this is from George T. Smith. When the town is considering a plan for new development or commercial building, is there any North Carolina law or rules that limit the town's ability to consider architecture design as part of the town's decision-making process?
I'm gonna let Mr. Rademacher handle that.
When it comes to residential, single-family homes, duplexes, things of that nature, it is expressly prohibited by the general statutes in North Carolina to regulate architecture. Individual homeowners associations or property owner associations absolutely can regulate that, and in most of our planned communities that does take place. In regard to commercial development, yes, absolutely we can do that, and we do that. We have a rather extensive architectural code that is applied to our overlay district here in the town. Obviously, we don't get a lot of commercial development, so we haven't actually seen it put into play, other than with the Dollar General building that was built that required it not to look like every other Dollar General that you see up and down the country. But we do have one. It does get enforced, and we can legally do that for commercial structures.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Mr. Smith. Along a short span of Seaside Road, there are two upcoming subdivisions that are in the planning stage, the Sanctuary and the towns of Seaside. Would the town please consider requiring these developers to add a right turn lane to their site plans if they have not done so already? This will become a very busy stretch of road, and the turning vehicles need to move out of the straight ahead lane so traffic will flow as smoothly as possible. Would this again be something
yeah.
Yes,
that you can answer,
all these questions will most
Okay,
likely be.
okay.
Mr. Rademacher.
So that wasn't part of their original submittal, as they hadn't gone to the Department of Transportation yet, and they hadn't done their transportation improvement analysis, at least for the Sanctuary, which is the 363 homes. Since that time, the Sanctuary has already received a permit for driveways, and one of the requirements by the Department of Transportation is a deceleration lane so that people can, like the gentleman said, get out of the way of the through traffic and make the right-hand turn into the Sanctuary. There's several other improvements that they'll have to do, like increasing the amount of stacking space at the stoplights, things of that nature, that due to the fact that, that will be increasing traffic. In regard to the towns at Sunset, they are currently going through their transportation improvement analysis with the state up in Raleigh. You can pretty much guarantee any new project on Sunset Boulevard or Seaside is going to be required to have some sort of deceleration lane. What we'll be waiting to see is what the cumulative total of all these improvements, now that you have the Sanctuary, the towns at Sunset, what kind of increases in traffic they demand that may require right-hand turn lanes or stoplight improvements at the various intersections as far as off-site improvements. And I would anticipate some of that happening when we do get the final driveway permit from the Department of Transportation.
Thanks, sir. Anyone have anything to add to that? Good. All right, next question by Mr. Smith. At the intersection of Seaside Road and Old Georgetown Highway, there's a real need for right turn lanes to be added in all four directions. Would the town consider urging North Carolina DOT to add these lanes?
It's something we could talk about with the GSAT's representatives, but as Mr. Rademacher pointed out, with those increased developments, there's every chance that DOT will go ahead and require the developers to contribute to those type of upgrades moving forward, maybe. But it's something we can still approach our GSAT's committees and ask for. Old Georgetown Road is in a widening, is in a corridor that's being studied for widening in the future already with the GSAT's Grand Strand Area Transportation Study. It's what we belong to. It's our form of a metropolitan plan organization. But that road's already being studied by the state to be considered for either a widening or other transportation improvements. We can just lend an extra voice to that.
And the other side of that too is also coordinating with our counterparts at Brunswick County, since most of that intersection is not in our jurisdiction. So we wouldn't have the larger voice at the table per se, as opposed to Brunswick County, since it's in their jurisdiction.
Thank you, sir. Next question by Mr. Smith. Is there a plan to work on Angel Trace Road so it will become a developed through street for the town?
Angel Trace Road is a private road. We can try to work, but it's in split ownership. It's not even in common ownership. So getting all the parties involved and willing to agree to something is a task. It's something we are trying to talk to people about periodically when the subject does come up, but there's no specific plan for us to actually go through and develop it ourselves currently.
Next question by Mr. Smith. Is there a plan to build some permanent bathroom facilities at the island parking lot by the gazebo? If not, can the town provide for the existing facility to be cleaned and serviced more frequently during the day when the summer season is in full swing? The bathrooms get a little dirty.
Presently, and if you want to take this, Dustin, I'll let you handle the second part, but the first part, We toyed with the idea of a permanent bathroom last year and decided it's more cost-effective to move forward with the non-permanent, plus the permanent bathrooms wouldn't be able to develop closer to the gazebo, they'd have to be at the street. But with the temporary, let's say temporary bathrooms, the cleaning schedule in the summer is what, twice a day currently?
During the summer months, they meet clean twice a day, first thing in the morning, then she comes out midday, in the afternoon, cleans them again. So they get it twice during the day, but between that time, I know there's a lot of people that goes in and out, and of course, you do have some people that do make a mess at night.
And if they use them properly instead of as showers,
Yeah, and we get reports of it, if there's an issue, we move on it and try to address it.
yeah, we don't wait just for the cleaning lady to come in. When, like Dustin said, when we do get a complaint, we do address it as soon as we can get to it. We do have limited staff members, and it does take time to mobilize and pull them off of one job to go and do what they need to do to handle everything else. So sometimes, I mean, more often than not, we will close them down to do repairs and everything else too. So I understand, I mean, it's hot, bathrooms are bathrooms, but we do try to address them as best we can, as frequently as we can.
Thank you, sir. Next question, Mr. Smith, this is his last one. It looks like the developer of Jaguar's Lair is working on the subdivision toward the back. Do you know if they're making any progress toward actually moving forward with this development?
At our last inspection, they were. We've since handed over some stuff to the attorney requesting just some further updates due to largely that the timeline originally agreed upon is just not possible due to the hurricanes that we've experienced over the last few years. But yes, for everything in the points that they are moving forward. Phase 1 has been able to be built upon for 2 years now, a year and a half now. The remaining phases are what they're putting the infrastructure in for. And when last we were on site was November, yeah, and they were currently installing stormwater at that time.
Next, right quick if I can. This was just some suggestions that a citizen had brought to me. It's nothing that I think y'all need to be printed out. I'll just mention it right quick. But it's basically just talking about citations, especially during the summertime when our visitors are here, about underage drivers on golf carts. Of course, too many people piled on golf carts. And then he asked a question about seat belts being on golf cart. And there's not a name on here, so I can't tell you who he was, but basically he was just asked questions in regards to the golf carts on the island with, you know, especially in the summertime, so much traffic, so much, is there any kind of extra regulations we can do to, you know, protect our citizens?
This is a recurring concern every summer, not just for the folks on the island, but for me and the members of the police department. Something that I ask that they address every season and keep close watch on. I'm going to knock on some wood here and say we've been fortunate in not having a tragedy involving a young person on a golf cart, but as those of you that live on the island or frequent the island in the summer months know, a lot of the tourists come in, the home either comes with a golf cart or they rent a golf cart and they're from another state. It's a gloomy day and they're not at the beach all day. The kids get on the parents' nerves and they say, find something to do before I discipline you. Get in that golf cart and get out of here. Go find something to do, and they do. We watch it very closely. I myself have stopped numerous golf carts, kids standing up on them, hanging off of the back, and we try to educate our folks the best that we can to make sure that they're safe. We send them straight home. We have contact with the parents or the folks that rented the cart to let them know what the rules are. I know a lot of the rental companies do have the rules posted in the rental units. But you know as well as I do, if you drive 14 hours to get here and then you drive over that bridge and see the ocean, you forget all sense of right and wrong because you just want to get in the water. So we will continue to do our best to enforce it. Sometimes we're limited with the number of people we have on patrol, so I ask all of you, if you see something, say something. Let us know. Let us know where it's at, what you saw, which direction they were heading. We'll head right over and try to enforce it to the best of our ability.
Could you please just reinforce what the basic requirements for a golf cart to be on the road are?
We don't have a permitting process in Sunset Beach, so we follow what's in the North Carolina General Statute for a low-speed vehicle. So to meet those requirements, the vehicle has to be street legal. It has to be operated by somebody that is, and when I say street legal, it has to have certain things. It has to have headlights, turn signals, stoplights, seat belts, which you have to follow the same rules as if you were driving a motor vehicle. So when a 14-year-old gets behind the wheel of a golf cart, a 14-year-old would not be behind the wheel of a motor vehicle, so that cannot happen. The rules of the road apply, coming to complete stops, using the turn signals not in excess of the manufacturer's recommendation for occupancy. So if there are 4 seat belts, there's 4 people that are allowed in that golf cart. Those vehicles have to be licensed, insured, and in order to be operated on the roadways. They have to be electric in order to get that license. They cannot be operated on streets that are in excess of 35 miles per hour. And a South Carolina permit is not good to operate your golf cart in North Carolina.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on. We had another question. This was from Kenny Rowland, East Main Street. And it was just a citizen asking about speed bumps for Main Street due to disregards of posted speed limit and safety. And when I followed up with that question, I talked to Lisa about it, and I was understood that DOT is in charge of Main Street and Sunset Boulevard. So I guess our hands are tied there, but it's just, like I said, I just wanted to bring it to the front that the citizen had asked about that. And I know in the past, since I've been here, I've heard it mentioned some about speed bumps, some on these roads, and we've talked about how that would be hard on our fire trucks and things. So that's one of the reasons that we don't have those.
Yep. And just as a general rule, the town does not install speed bumps. So if there are speed bumps, it's a private road.
We had this question addressed. I know it's been brought to the attention of the town administrator, and I think he's answered and been following up with it, but it was just a question about rocks being dumped in the Jinx Creek Tub Inlet area. I know that it's been addressed because I've been receiving the emails on it from you. But just wanted to mention that Miss Lynn Nesmith, that was who sent the question in, but like I said, I know it was addressed. Did anybody have anything to say in that, or?
Not explicitly. I mean, there's some evidence of rocks in the inlet hazard area that may or may have not have been there prior to the storm that caused the 30-foot worth of erosion over there. It's in a very small patch, the one that she was pointing out. There is some riprap that I pointed out to the Division of Coastal Management who enforces that. They said on another lot, but they've been down recently for similar issues and erosion over there and went over some of the violating areas as well. So that's something that it's not fully in our regulatory area if it's waterward of the high water mark. If it's landward of the high water mark, it's something we can take care of. But these issues that we saw out there are waterward, so we've turned them over to the state.
Then I had a note left in my mailbox by a citizen. There's no name on this, and it's basically just a question asking about the cleanups, which we've discussed that today with the different areas, about the ordinances and all, so I think this one has been addressed. Then I have some questions that have come in from Mr. Serrato. I know each one of the council will have it. These are more discussion type questions because they're bigger, more background and all. I know, Mr. Paul, I think you addressed a couple of them today in your thing, talking about the we spoke about the revenue policy. We've talked about the fire department cost. We have covered the Citizens Beach parking. We've discovered that. I noticed that you have something about paid guest parking on there. And like I said, when we get into this when we get into this parking study, we'll be looking into more things like that. We gotta have some ideas, some different scenarios to go on, and hopefully we can get something in line in the near future, at least to get us going in the right direction. There's a thing on here about cabanas. I think we addressed most of that today. And I think that's it.
Beach patrol. The Cabana question was about beach patrol, among other things.
At the bottom, I see that. They were asking about questions with the beach patrol, about the money being spent, what we were getting for our money, things like that. Does anyone have anything to add on that at this time?
I will real quick. All that Beach Patrol is a department that we fund through accommodations tax primarily, or wholly actually. But we go over those full costs and their full services every year during our budget presentations. So anytime that something like that changes, that's where we go with. But comparing an increase in service with an increase of cost, So if you want to reduce costs, we will have to reduce services. So that's something the council's gonna have to decide. They'd like to move forward with beach patrol during budget. If you want to lower the cost of what we provide our tourists and our residents, if we're gonna lower that cost, we're gonna lower those services. If we want to keep the same service, it will be about the same cost. If you want to increase those services, clearly costs are gonna go up. We always try to find ways of doing it as effectively and efficiently as possible, just because, and then just a general budgeting concept here for people to understand. We budget at an X number as a estimated outlier of where we may spend, but it's not our goal to spend up to that point. We'd like to spend under that any chance that we get, but it's cleaner for our audit, it's better for our people, and it's better for us internally knowing that we've got that cushion to go to this point without having to come back every time and ask for an extra $100, an extra $1,000 or whatever, doing budget amendments. It's better for our auditing process, and it shows more fiscal responsibility knowing that this may be where we're at, as opposed to constantly coming back and having to pull more money out. So just be rest assured that while Beach Patrol may be upwards of 100,000 now, that also includes additional personnel, qualified personnel to help with life-saving activities, qualified personnel to sit on the beach for several hours a day in the heat and bring in people. We struggled a few years ago getting volunteers to come be part of Beach Patrol because we weren't giving it enough money to provide the program that we wanted to have. So in previous years, we did increase those funds in order to bring up our level of service and actually get people interested in providing that service. I know people don't like to hear it. I know people feel that it's overspending, but it's a very useful thing. There are frontline ambassadors to tourists. We get wonderful compliments all the time from Beach Patrol, and we also get complaints from people about Beach Patrol. But those complaints usually involve someone having done something wrong and Beach Patrol having to correct it. But if you want, like I said, this is a budgetary decision at a council level. If you want this service, this is what we need to pay for it. If you want less service, we'll be glad to run those numbers too.
There's one bit of information that I would like investigated before we hit to the budget cycle, and that's the question has a comparison between the cost of what we spend in Sunset Beach versus what Ocean Isle Beach spends. And so I think the question is, if we have apples and oranges between Sunset Beach and Ocean Isle Beach, could you check with, coordinate, find out what Ocean Isle Beach does so that we can, understand why there's a difference in cost between us and OIB?
Yeah, I can look into a few more specifics. I have a few questions too, but primarily we don't provide the same service they do.
Well, I mean, that would be.
And the service that Ocean Isle does is, and my latest understanding is they have part-time police officers, typically 2 of them during the day on ATVs, and they move up and down enforcing ordinances over there. And so some of the EMS, fire rescue, public education things that we are doing, and like Mr. Marziano said, really, I look at Beach Patrol as their stewards for the town, kind of like cruise ship stewards when people are on a cruise ship, and educating and answering questions about the town, or where do we go to dinner, or what are our options, all those type of things I think are some big differences. Plus we have 4 people out there typically middle of the day, and so I can get some more information for you, but services are vastly different.
Good, thank you. That'd be helpful.
We had a few more questions sent in. This was from a Ted James on 37th Street. The question is about the audio video, working on making it better where people can hear it in here, where they can see it better as they watch it on thing. I think that's something that we've already addressed. Lisa has been talking to us about new microphones, whether it's hanging out the ceiling, where it's the ones that go on your shirts or whatever. So I think that is something that we've already covered on this question. He has a question about multi-use pedestrian and bike lanes. I know we've addressed that some today, so I hope that he's got the answers that he's looking for there. talking about speed limits on the busy island streets like North Shore and Main Street and all, which we have brought that up. That has been brought up, talking about people biking, walking. That has been discussed today. And then he had a question about light pollution. He was talking about, you know, not only with our turtles, as far as them, I guess, eating the things or getting tangled up in it and stuff like that, just ways to look into, to handle more pollution. And we've mentioned that the ERC is looking at different things as far as plastics and things like that. So I feel like that was covered. We've had a lot of questions about Palm Cove with the situations going on there. And the thing is, from my understanding, from what Hiram has said, that is a private section. The town is not over that. They handle what is going on there, and the situation that happened out there had nothing to do with us. That had to do with the water people and with them, and I think they're working together, if I'm not mistaken, to get to their solve. But we're not really we're not tied into that. It's not our financial responsibility
Right.
there, correct?
Yep.
This is the erosion.
Yes.
The erosion, okay.
And to address that real quick, Palm Cove's in an inlet hazard area and an ocean erodible zone. It gets hit double whammied wise. Their erosion rate is the same erosion rate for our area, which is 440 feet. Any given storm, 440 feet gone. And they get that from the ocean side and the inlet side both. The people who build there are aware of that when they build. They literally have to sign a form in front of our CAMA LPO officer stating that they understand that they're building in this high hazard area and that it's their responsibility. No one else is, not ours, not the state's, not the federal government's. And their issue with the road, that an accident with, due to the erosion, the fire hydrant was exposed and had to be removed. It was a safety hazard. Something happened with the removal, some more erosion was caused, but this is not something that the town will financially contribute to. It's not something that we are obligated to. It's not something I don't believe we could. It's not even a private road. It's a private driveway crossing property lines. So that entire area is, while it's in our town, it's in our jurisdiction, we have developmental control over it. We don't have financial obligations utilizing everybody's tax dollars out there to repair the damages. That's not to say that if the town wanted to eventually do something to contribute, I'm not saying we will, but those are possibilities that we could go into. It's just nothing that we're obligated to do so. And there's a rumor going around that the county is going to raise their water rates for fixing the line out there. I'm not even sure it's legal to utilize enterprise fund to recoup emergency money funds. So rumors are rumors. A lot of people think some things can happen. Maybe they can in other states. They can't in North Carolina. They're not going to raise everybody's water rates to fix a water line in Palm Cove. I saw that one on Facebook. So just know that Palm Cove it's a strange entity of how it is, how it was developed. But the people out there are responsible for their own property. And to be quite honest, it's their business between them and the state. We've been invited as a courtesy to participate in any meetings, but we don't have any clout to sit there and say what they can and cannot do as far as the state's concerned with working with them on their erosion problems.
Thank you. We had a question, this was Joanne, I didn't get her last name, and it was just about parking. It was talking about more handicaps on the west and east. I know that's been brought up today, so I think that question will be covered. Other than that, I think that's about it. I just want to go on record to saying, since I've been brought on as mayor, I just want to thank our staff. As I've got to know you and I've been in here having these meetings and questions have been asked, everything that I've come to, no matter who it is on this staff, has been right on it for me. They've hunted the questions. They've helped me to stay accountable to people, and I just want to tell you I really appreciate town staff. Thank y'all so much for everything you've done. Also, me and Lisa has discussed this about putting a suggestion box here in Town Hall where citizens are welcome to come in. I'm here on Wednesdays from 3 to 5. I'm here on Fridays from 10 to 12. And my number is easily available if you got any questions for me, which I know that's the same for all our councilmen. You have access to everybody. But if you would just like, I know everybody doesn't send emails or things. If you would like to write down any suggestions or anything, feel free to bring it in that box. Maybe by the 1st of February, we could have something there. Drop them in there. Just make us be accountable, and that's what we want to try to do. I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today. Our next scheduled meeting is February the 3rd, the night meeting. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, a few things
Yes,
real
sir.
quick.
Yes, sir.
And keeping in line with what the mayor was saying about a suggestion box, I just wanted to point out this community forum, you know, we've decided to do 2 of them a year, and it's a great thing to get everybody here and discuss ideas. I just want to remind everybody, you know, our phones work. You know, we're here in the office I mean, we may be in the field, but we can get back here fast. The town's not that large. Feel free to come in and talk to us anytime about any of the issues. I see faces in here that I've talked to several times about several things. So, you know, we may not always be able to give you the answer you want, but we're more than happy to sit down and talk it out and figure out what we can and cannot do with you. You know, to that end, as far as communications are concerned, council may or may not be aware yet. This week, I even started us a Twitter account to help get more information out, be more transparent. It's mostly just going to be cut and paste what's on Facebook and the webpage, but not everybody goes to our webpage. Not everybody does email us. Not everybody asks the questions all the time. So what information we are putting out, we're trying to find multiple avenues to get that information out to people and encourage people to talk with us and discuss with us. And then leading further from that, I'm going to let the chief announce.
We have January 29th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Sandpiper Bay Clubhouse. We're hosting a Coffee with a Cop event. That's this coming Wednesday. Or is it Thursday?
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. This coming Wednesday.
He might be there.
From 8 to 10. There's flyers up here by these 3 gentlemen if you want to grab one out. Just a chance to come and meet some of your police officers. Very informal. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to join us. Free cup of coffee, too.
And thanks, Chief. And my point being is there's multiple ways that y'all can get through to us, and there's multiple ways that we're more than happy to help. So don't hesitate. Don't wait for the next community forum. If you want to drop by and say hi, you got a question, just come on in. We can work our schedules to help you guys out. I'm not above coming in here after hours. So just thank you all for coming out here, and I'll give it back to the council.
No further questions? February 3rd, 7 p.m. is that meeting. Or you can come at 6:45 if we have council discussions. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.